Well, thanks, Paul, and good morning, and welcome to our 2019 growing season. We alluded to here just a second ago, there have been some challenges here so far during the growing season. I'm going to start looking in the rearview mirror and then move ahead with outlooks. Some I think encouraging news longer term, but it's not going to be it's going to take a little while, I think, to get there. Starting off, and Christy alluded to this, we've had a very active spring and late winter pattern. What you're looking at right here are precipitation totals for the last 3 months, back to early January. And if we look at our last winter, it was an interesting one. We had an early onset of winter back in November up through Thanksgiving, and then in the first week of December, it changed. We went really mild. And that milder than normal pattern continued for about 5 or 6 weeks through Christmas and New Year. And then during the first week of January, we reverted from unusually mild to unusually cold. And probably most remember we had 2 visits from the Arctic, 2 big polar outbreaks, one in the 3rd week of the month and then another the fourth week of January. They would have been much worse if the Great Lakes wouldn't have been there. And February turned out to be colder than normal as well, although we did have a couple mild periods. March and April were a little bit closer to normal, but still cooler than normal, but with a very active storm track through the Midwest. Most of the storms with the storm track over the last few months have been to our west. And because of that, depending on where you were in the state, lots of snow if you were up in the UP and the northern lower, and a lot of our precip came in liquid form across the south, especially the southeastern part of the state. But one thing we can say for sure is that for much of the state, precip has been above or heavier than normal. That's especially true here looking at northern and northwestern parts of the state, especially upper Michigan, where you can see here more than 200% of normal. Winter is the driest season of the year climatologically. However, precip totals have still been unusually heavy, and that has left many soils certainly wetter than well, they're typically pretty moist this time of the year, but even wetter than normal, which has caused a slow start. Degree day wise, and again, Christy brought this up here, we are behind normal, but we've made we've cut into that deficit here. These are totals as of Tuesday morning versus normal. And this is actually using what we use for the overwintering crops beginning March 1, but I think it sort of sets the stage for where things are. These are base 50 degree day totals versus normal, and this is expressed in terms of calendar days either ahead or behind. And all the blues here suggest behind normal. Most of the state is a few days to more than a week behind normal. That's especially true, again, as we go up into northern parts, the upper peninsula and the northern lower. With the recent warmer weather, though, down here across the south, we were only a few days behind our long-term climatological normal. So we have, if we would have looked at this chart here a week ago, we would have seen many areas at least 1 week, in some cases pushing 2 calendar weeks behind normal. But with the recent warmer weather, we're close, or closer than we should be. One last thing, soil temperatures, they have, with the recent warmer weather, especially in southern parts of the state, have improved. These are bare 4-inch soil temperature averages for the last couple days, and they range generally from the low 40s in the far northern parts of the state. There's still some lingering snow cover in the upper peninsula, but that warms moving into the upper 40s to near 50 in the northern lower, and we do have some upper 50s now reported across the southern lower. So that has responded, the soil temperatures have responded, especially over the last week, to 10 days, but we're still a little bit behind where we typically are for the last week in April. Well, let's look at the weather here. Where are we headed? And we still have an active, and we'll call it unsettled weather pattern to deal with here, at least in the short term. This morning on the left, these are current conditions. We have a cool front that's going to make its way from northwest to southeast across the state. I guess the good news about this is there's not much moisture with the system to work with. Most areas, if they see precipitation, it's going to be scattered. We'll probably see 1/10 of an inch or less. Not much in terms of heavy precipitation, But as we look at the next 24 to 48 hours, we will see the rain come to an end, or at least the threat of rain come to an end tomorrow morning across the southeastern part of the states. It'll be a very cool and windy day. There's a lot of, there's higher pressure in back of this front here. It will be a little blustery tomorrow with north and northwest winds. And then that sets the stage for our next major weather system. These are forecast conditions here on the right for Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, and you can see a large area of low pressure. This is not typically what we see. This is what we would see in the winter season with a low pressure system moving from northwest to southeast down through the Midwest. The meteorologists refer to these as Alberta Clipper type systems, and again, they're typical for the cold season, not spring. We typically see our weather coming out of the southwest by this time of the year. But this Alberta Clipper, is going to bring widespread precipitation to much of the state, but I think probably mostly to the central and southern part of the state. It's going to basically move right down here through Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. And if you're looking at colors here, you would expect at this time of the year to see mostly green, indicating liquid precipitation. Well, purples and blues, of course, again, if you watch this, these are frozen. We've got either mixed precipitation or snowfall expected on the northern part of this. There will be enough cold air behind this cold front that moves through here today, unfortunately, overnight on Saturday to change this precipitation over. It may start as rain, but it probably will change over to snow. And with low temperatures probably down near 30, the low 30s here overnight Saturday into Sunday morning, certainly the potential is there for some accumulations. We're not talking anything outrageous like we were a couple of weeks ago, but I would not be surprised to see some areas across southern or central lower Michigan here pick up an inch or two of heavy wet snow overnight Saturday night and Sunday. The good news is with strong sunshine this time of the year, it's not going to take much. It will not last long. It'll melt off fairly quickly on Sunday, but another reminder that we're still in the transition season. I think the worst overall news with this particular system is, though, that the precipitation totals with it will be on the heavier side. We will see at least a half an inch in many parts of the southern part of the state, and in some spots we could pick up 3/4 to an inch. I think that'll be the top end, but it's obviously not what is needed right now at this time of the year. And I think this is probably the most, the least positive news that I'm sharing. These are forecast precipitation totals here for the next 7 days out through next Thursday. After the system that moves through here this weekend, it will be clearing off and drier on Sunday and into Monday, but then unfortunately we have at least one, if not two more weather disturbances to deal with next week. And collectively with all that, what certainly our forecast guidance is suggesting is that for certain parts of the state, we're going to be picking up heavy totals, 1 to 2 inches, not unlikely. I think this is probably overdoing a little aggressive from the National Weather Service here, but the message is that we do have, unfortunately, significant rain and snow, significant precipitation to deal with here for the next week, given the pattern that we're in right now. Now, looking beyond that, I'm going to start with the 6 to 10 day outlook, and actually, I didn't put an 8 to 14 day outlook here because it's almost the same general thing. But if we look at the jet stream flow here across, that's on the left panel, we've got a trough out over the western U.S. and a ridge over the east. Now, normally what that means for us is above normal temperatures, possibly, depending on the situation, maybe above normal precipitation totals with a storm track from southwest to northeast. That we've seen that a lot of the last several weeks here. But in this particular case, what we're expecting is an active storm track really along the U.S.-Canadian border, and some Canadian origin air masses just to our north. Michigan's going to be right on the border of that along the northern or the U.S. and Canadian border, and with that, below normal or cooler than normal temperatures here are expected along the northern tier of states, including at least a part of Michigan. And I think, unfortunately, that's probably what we're looking at for the bulk of next week into next weekend. This particular outlook goes through the 4th of May. The 8 to 14 day time frame outlook, again, it's virtually identical to that. Cooler than normal, especially for northern parts of the state, with maybe normal temperatures across the south. We're going to see the passage of several frontal boundaries with this weather system, and probably, again, the not so good news, and with an active storm track probably above normal precipitation totals likely to continue for much of next week and probably into the following week. Now, beyond that, the guidance is suggesting some changes. This is the 3 to 4 week outlook, which takes us into the second week of May. And in that particular outlook, we do see warmer than normal mean temperatures returning to much of the Midwest and to the Great Lakes region. It also calls for below normal precipitation totals. So again, expecting maybe a little bit of a pattern change here some point during the first week in May. And then finally, our new long lead ensembles here are also very consistent in calling for warmer than normal mean temperatures for both the month of May and also for the first half of the summer. Actually, we could go out here through the end of the summer into the early fall. Almost all of them are calling for warmer than normal mean temperatures. For precipitation, while the outlooks do call for above normal precipitation totals, or at least an elevated risk of above normal precip to our south and to our west, here specifically for the Great Lakes and for Michigan, we're actually in the EC, or equal chances category, which essentially means there is no favored direction in terms of above or below normal for precipitation. So again, with the long leads, I think the real message is warmer than normal eventually here after we get through this next 1 to 2 weeks. And so summarizing, again, we've had a very active storm track, very active weather pattern with lots of precipitation. That is expected to continue at least in the short term, with more, especially here this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, with that weather system. Hopefully that will be the end of need for any snow removal. You never say never, especially this April. We've been unfortunate that way, but it is possible in Michigan, even in late April. But we should see some improvement, hopefully by late next week and into the following week, with warmer weather expected then. But until then, cool and unsettled, I think, is the best description of where we're at and what we're likely to see here for the next week to 10 days. So with that, I'll see if anyone has any questions, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. I put my snow shovels away last night, so there's no more snow. At least I'm hoping. So
yeah, I did take mine out. I've put mine away at least once and was reminded that it was a bad decision. So hopefully it won't happen to you.
Can we assume that we're going to probably get the crop planted in a timely fashion in Michigan?
Well, it's I'd love to say we would have some field work behind us at this point in time, but as we know, it's been pretty limited. There's been some recent activity where people can get it done, but it's just not as much as we'd like. And so what that typically points to is a rush here when the weather does improve, and hopefully that will be again in that week to 10-day plus time frame. But it's going to be difficult at least over the short term, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. There's no questions in the chat box, so I'd kind of like to wrap it up. I really appreciate Christy and Jeff sharing information with us this morning. This is the first of a number of weekly calls. We're going to have them every Thursday until September 5th. So we'd really like to invite you to join us if you can. If you'd like to join us and haven't signed up and get an email reminder, you can go to the MSU Field Crops website. We are going to be putting these webinars on our social media sites. You can join us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We're also going to put these in the form of podcasts. So if you didn't get an opportunity to listen to them, or you'd like to re-listen to some of the information, they'll be available there by just by searching for MSU Field Crops. So with that, appreciate everybody joining us today, and we'll look forward to next week, where Dr. Manny Singh is going to be talking about corn and soybean planting and some of those issues surrounding planting timing. So with that, thank you very much, and everyone have a good day.